every single thing I have done this pregnancy to prepare for baby number 2 and what will hopefully be a VBAC. I am 37 weeks and 3 days today, and I sat down today and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make a video just listing out every single thing that I've done different this pregnancy, but also just different in the sense of how I'm preparing more for labor and delivery. We had our first baby, Kai, 4 years ago, 4+ years ago now, and we kind of just went into that whole experience blind in a way. Like, I did the bare minimum of preparation for just what birth was going to look like. I did create somewhat of a birth plan, but I think our overall mindset with that was just like, let's wing it and see what happens, which is fine. Like, I don't regret necessarily any of it, but I think how our whole labor and birth ended up last time, there was definitely just way more intervention than I realized was needed, and I just have way more experience and knowledge and have taken the time to truly educate myself now. Obviously, I had a C-section with that. I got all the way to 9 centimeters, and then basically they gave me 30 minutes to decide if we wanted to go through with the C-section. And I just remember feeling very defeated, but also like really didn't know what the best decision was at that point. And there was a few things that happened leading up to that I just didn't know I could say no to, things that I just wasn't fully aware of. So we'll get into all of that as I go through this list, but also completely aware that even despite me doing all the things, all of these things now, having all this education, if it still comes to the point where a C-section is necessary, I'm also okay with that. If it happens, it happens, but at least I know now I prepared fully. I did everything that I could control in my power to have a better birth experience and feel ultimately more in control and empowered during my birth experience. So hopping right in, the first one is probably the most obvious, but I have chosen to exercise, specifically strength train, and do cardio throughout my entire pregnancy. This has always been a high priority for me in our lifestyle with what we do, but there's obviously benefits to exercise during pregnancy. Strength training specifically is recommended by the ACOG, so it's something that they are recognizing as being beneficial to pregnant women and to babies. Living a healthy lifestyle, having enough muscle mass, feeling good in your body, and feeling strong and capable is so important no matter what stage of life that you're in, but especially during pregnancy, exercise can help with pain, specifically lower back and hip pain. It can help with your posture. Obviously, as we're growing a human, we're getting a lot of weight on the front side of our body. So having strong glutes and a strong posterior chain is also really beneficial. And I have found it also gives me something to focus on that isn't related to what my body looks like. Exercise serves us in so many different ways. And by aiming to at least maintain our muscle mass throughout pregnancy, we're allowing ourselves to truly live at an optimal level. So I have been super consistent with that since I got pregnant, since way before pregnancy, over the last decade. That was something I definitely was also consistent with in our first pregnancy, but the difference between my first pregnancy and this pregnancy, I would say, is I'm just overall more confident in what's happening, and therefore my lifting intensity has stayed up. So I've been lifting a little bit heavier this time. I've just been feeling better in my body and just, again, more confident in what I'm doing. I've lifted 3 to 4 days per week this entire pregnancy. I've sprinkled in cardio in there as well, but lifting has been my primary focus to maintain as much muscle mass as possible. Number 2, nutrition. Obviously, this is super important all the time as well, but especially during pregnancy. And it can be really challenging during pregnancy, just because hormones They tend to mess with our appetite. The first trimester, I have a whole video about the first trimester if you're struggling in the first trimester with your nutrition right now. But, you know, this pregnancy overall, like, I feel like my mindset with nutrition has just been a little bit different. I haven't really had any cravings, to be honest, but when I do have them, I always just ask myself, like, what is going to make me feel my best right now? And even if something doesn't sound super appetizing or wasn't my first choice or exactly what I wanted in the moment, I would kind of just separate myself from the moment and from those feelings and think about what's going to allow me to feel my best energy-wise, digestion-wise, just as a whole. And that doesn't necessarily mean restricting or eating things I don't like, but for example, not just opting for a bowl of Cheerios and milk and kind of taking a second to assess, okay, where can I get my protein source right now? Does this meal have fiber in it? Kind of go through my list there. And protein and fiber were the two things I focused on most when building my meals. I did not track macros during this pregnancy. I've been tracking macros on and off for a decade now, so I've been able to mindfully eat, and that means eating with intention. So still having my main focus areas, probably would be eating very similar, if not exactly the same as if I were tracking macros during this pregnancy. But I just have that inner knowledge where it didn't need to happen. But overall, nutrition has been so much better compared to my first, and it has helped keep digestion on track, energy levels as good as they possibly can be, and obviously played a role in maintaining my muscle mass by consuming enough protein. Number 3, the chiropractor. I started seeing a chiro that was specializing in pregnancy at around 25 weeks, I want to say it was. I was dealing with just some like SI joint related pain just from things shifting and changing in my body. So I found one local and started seeing them a couple times a week at first, and then dropped down to once a week. I'll probably go one more time depending on when this baby comes. I noticed an immense difference in just my pain around my hips and just how I felt like right afterwards. Like after the first session, I was like, okay, that's a noticeable difference. That's enough for me to keep going. A chiro can also help if your baby is not in a good position, if they're breech or transverse, so lying sideways. It just allows you to create more room in your body, specifically your hips and your pelvis area, to make room for baby. I also met with a pelvic floor PT, so my girl, Dr. Jen Morgan, who worked with me on the postpartum program guide, which we have live in our app. But I saw her at 30 weeks and then again at 34 weeks, I believe it was. And she did an internal assessment, so just internally assessed what my pelvic floor was doing, making sure I knew how to correctly activate and contract and relax my pelvic floor muscles. Kind of assess just what the tissue was doing in there, taught me how to do perineal massage, and gave me some exercises to make sure my pelvic floor was just where it needs to be. Again, making space for baby, making sure things are working efficiently, and just helping me with birth prep. So making sure I understand how to breathe in conjunction with my pelvic floor, really how to relax it for pushing and all that. So I highly recommend seeking out a pelvic floor PT. This should honestly be standard of care for every pregnant and postpartum woman, I think. Even if you don't have any issues. Like I wasn't experiencing incontinence or leaking or tightness or SPD pain or anything like that, but just wanted to make sure things are looking good to optimize my chances of having a vaginal birth. All right, next up, I have been prioritizing cold showers, meditation, and breath work. I kind of lumped these 3 into one because they kind of go together in the way that I do them. So the cold showers have been something we've been talking about for a while now. We've been firm believers in cold exposure ourselves pre-pregnancy. I did not do any cold exposure from about when I found out I was pregnant, so like 5 weeks, until like right before the first trimester ended. So took most of the first trimester away from cold showers and cold exposure in general, just to be safe, because with our history, I didn't want to put my body under any additional stress. They have been I love them so much. As much as I used to hate them, I love them now. I do them first thing when I wake up every morning. Like, it's the first thing I do when I roll out of bed. Usually 1 to 2 minutes during pregnancy. Pre-pregnancy, I worked up to like almost 5. But just as cold as the water goes in my shower, it wakes me up. I don't feel like I need coffee right away. It provides me such mental clarity and focus. But the main reason I've been continuing them during pregnancy is because I just want to practice my breath and relaxing and breathing in a stressful situation. So this is a controlled stressor, but it's a chance for me to simulate contractions or labor and allowing me to practice staying calm and relaxed and using my breath despite being in the situation that my body does not love, right? So it's not necessarily that cold showers are painful. Maybe you think they are, but they're challenging. It's a mental toughness activity that, we truly have reaped the benefits from as far as that goes. So continuing that and really placing extra focus on my breath work during those has been key, as well as meditating every day. So you guys know we talk a lot about meditation, both Josh and I, but meditation during pregnancy has been super helpful. It was helpful for me pre-pregnancy when we were going through all the infertility stuff. So just continuing that, doing my daily Calm. I use the Calm app, and just whether I start my day with it or do it throughout the day, I try to do it every day as often as I can. And again, just working on relaxing and going inward and controlling my breath and controlling my thoughts. So hopefully will pay off with labor. All right, and then my next thing has been listening to positive birth stories. This is something that I didn't really do at all with my first pregnancy. So I've been seeking out VBAC specific positive birth stories and just positive ones in general that feel sort of in alignment with where I'm at and what I want my birth to look like. So the 3 podcasts that I've been listening to for that have been the VBAC link, Down to Birth, and then the Birth Hour podcast. Those have been my top 3 that I think just have really great content. So I've been listening to those usually when I'm out for my walks or if I'm driving in the car by myself. I'll throw one of those on and just listen to someone else's birth story. And it's been really great just to hear other people's experiences, things that happened during their experience. That way I'm not just basing this birth experience off of my previous one, which didn't obviously go as I wanted it to. So I have all of these stories and positive experiences to think back to when I'm in labor. I also did read a few books. So Ina May's, I don't want to say her name, Ina May's Guide to Childbirth. I'm reading her breastfeeding one now. So just kind of educating myself alongside that mindset of unmedicated, vaginal birth, low intervention, all those things. All right, and then these next few things are things that I have started specifically in the 3rd trimester, these last few weeks. So number 1, at 36 weeks, I started Antenatal Colostrum collection, which is basically just hand expressing colostrum daily. I noticed I was experiencing letdown and was leaking despite way before this even happened, probably starting around 30 weeks or so. But my midwife told me at 36 weeks I could start hand expressing and collecting it in these little vials that she gave me. So I just hand express into a small, clean, sterilized container and then just suck it up into the vial, and we have them in the freezer. So we can bring a couple of those to the hospital if baby girl needs an extra boost for whatever reason, or we can save them for if she gets sick, or honestly, even if Kai gets sick. This is the best. They call it liquid gold for a reason. It is packed with nutrients that will help baby, help our kids. So I've been doing that. If you guys need resources on that or want to read more about it, Carrie Locher on Instagram, I'll put her Instagram handle on the screen here, has a story highlight, super helpful. She's the pro with that. But like I said, it kind of was just happening already, so I'm just collecting it and expressing what I can get. So it's been good. I did start the raspberry leaf tea daily in the 3rd trimester, but really have been more consistent with it in the last 2 weeks, so since around like 35 weeks or so. Now I'm drinking 2 cups a day of that. I just make a big batch of it, keep it in the fridge, keep it cold, and it's like cold iced tea. Add a little bit of honey. I have a video on my Instagram with what I've been doing. I've been eating 6 to 8 dates per day. Both the raspberry tea and the dates, the research isn't like the greatest, but my mindset with this stuff is like, it can't hurt me at this point. The only caution I would want you to know about with the dates is that they're a high carb food, right? So if you are consuming 6 dates per day, that's a good amount of carbs. I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but it's like between somewhere 30 to 50 plus carbs. That's a good amount. So I've been just having them either before or after my workout. They can replace other carb sources from your diet if you feel that's something that you should be paying attention to. So I've been doing that, but I kind of just use them as a little snack instead of like having a bowl of ice cream. Like I'll have my coconut dates and they're so good. And then I've also been doing pelvic and hip opening exercises. So just again, preparing my body as much as possible. Baby girl has been head down for a while now. I always feel her feet here, and I have been feeling them there for like probably since 30 weeks. But again, this stuff cannot be harmful, and it ensures that your body is just in a good place. Your muscles, your ligaments, they're all open and not too tight in certain areas, and it just feels good, honestly. So I'll put some examples of what I've been doing on the screen here, but just adding these in almost as my dynamic warm-up for my lifts, or at the end of the day, if it's a rest day, I'll just do these before bed and they just feel really good. I've also been prioritizing a lot of unilateral work with my training. So back to exercise for a second, just really opening the hips up. You hear about curb walking, you hear about climbing upstairs sideways. Those things can work too, but for me, I'm already training, and unilateral work is a great way to make sure that your hips are open, making sure that baby is essentially able to drop into the right position. So that's been something I have programmed in our pregnancy program guide in the app, but definitely should be a high priority if you are strength training or even doing body weight exercises. That I think will likely have a bigger impact than just curb walking alone. And then something I started around 30 weeks was walking 3 miles every single day. I've been really good at walking throughout this whole pregnancy. I usually go for a morning walk or an evening walk or just staying mobile throughout the day. But I started the 3 miles consistently at 30 weeks per the requests of my pelvic floor physical therapist. She said it's just something that has been shown via research that has been helpful to just get your body ready for labor. It can help you go into spontaneous labor. Women who walked, I believe it was 30 or 40 minutes a day, compared to those who didn't, had higher instances of spontaneous labor, higher Bishop score, which is what they're looking for during labor too. So since I was kind of doing it already, it can't hurt, and being outside and walking is just one of my favorite things and habits to get into, to listen to podcasts or to just clear my head. So again, this just kind of fit in with what I was already doing pre-pregnancy, just a little more consistent and intentional. Also practicing relaxing my pelvic floor daily during different things. So if I'm just sitting, making sure my core isn't like active, obviously through exercise, having a bowel movement, just making sure that I'm not tensing up my jaw, breathing the right way, allowing my body to open up. Like I've really been utilizing that as practice for pushing out a baby, relaxing my pelvic floor, getting my body ready to open up. So just in normal daily activities, being aware of that. All right, I think that is my full list. I feel like I'm probably forgetting some things, but those are the main things I've been doing to just prepare for an unmedicated vaginal birth after a cesarean. Again, regardless of what happens or what the outcome is of our labor and delivery, I feel just much more confident and empowered that I did spend the time doing all of these things. And even if we do end up with another C-section for whatever reason, like, it just makes me happy knowing that I did all I could to not do that. But at the end of the day, healthy baby is really the number one. So I will be putting up a video sharing more about my birth plan next week, I believe, if I don't have a baby by then. So stay tuned for that. And I'm happy to answer any questions or give you guys any additional pieces of advice. If you drop a comment below, let me know you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.